Listen, if it's one thing that I'm pretty sure we're all aware of is that life is out here moving fast, okay? It's a lot going on. We got society telling us what we should be doing, we should be, all while we're still trying to figure ourselves out. But you know what we can do? We can be mindful of where we are in this present moment and take small steps towards becoming better by the day and towards reaching our God-given purpose. So let's figure it out and work through it together. Welcome to Mindful Moments, y'all. A space where we talk it out, laugh it out, cry it out, hash it out. Listen, just get it all out, okay? This is a safe space for you, where we talk about the ups, the downs, even the in-betweens. A place where we go through it so we can grow through it. Tune in every week as we fill our minds with who we're destined to be, with positivity, with awareness, and honestly, just with love. So I encourage you, let's be mindful of today in hopes for, yes, a better you, but also in hopes for a better tomorrow. Again, welcome to Mindful Moments. Welcome back to another episode of Mindful Moments. I am your host, Jada Low. Welcome back, 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 welcome back. If this is your, she's a weirdo. Anywho, if this is your first time watching or listening, I appreciate y'all so much. I do not take it lightly or for granted that y'all take the time out your day, whether you're on the way to work, whether you're at the gym, whether you're like working and listening. I don't take it for granted that y'all take the time out of y'all's day to listen or to take the time out your day to watch, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you so much. And for those coming back, those who are here on a regular basis, y'all know what I'm about to say. What's poppin'? What's goody? What's poppin' with y'all? I want to come up with like a name for like, I want to come up with a name for us. I'm not talking about like no fan types. Oh, that's weird. But I'm talking about like in terms of the episodes, in terms of us like talking about the episodes, like the Mindful Moments community. I want to come up with a name for that. So if y'all have any ideas, DM me and let me know. My Instagram and my TikTok is at O3H's OHHH underscore JADA. I thought about mindful members, but that's for something later down the line that I may have an idea about. But yeah, that's just something that's been in the back of my head. So that's neither, well, that is here or there because I mentioned it. But how's y'all's week been going? Y'all know these episodes drop bi-weekly, so there's a slight good space in between when the episodes come out and when like we can give each other updates. So how have y'all been doing and how y'all been feeling? I've been feeling pretty good. I've been feeling good. Life has been treating me very well. God is amazing. I have no complaints, and I'm just blessed to be here. So let's get into it, y'all. Let's talk about PPPs. I know I throw y'all off sometimes because like I get straight into the episodes, but I'm gonna be honest. I hate it when even when you with YouTube and stuff. Like I hate it, like especially on story times. Why do y'all take 5 minutes to get into the story time? Like just get to the point. If y'all say that y'all are here to show me this, show me this. If y'all here to talk about this, talk about this. That's why yeah. So let's talk about PPPs. PPPs. I'm not talking about the payment protection program. I'm talking about something that has wreaked havoc on the world a little bit more than the payment protection program, and that is the pandemic of people pleasing. I love words. I love a play on words, and people pleasing might as well be a pandemic because baby, it's taken my world by storm. It's taken my world by storm, but I feel like that's something that I can honestly speak on very daggum well. So we're going to talk about it, where I've come from, where I am now, the beauty of saying no, because that's a thing, how to not feel guilty about saying no. I'm just going to say everything that's coming to mind. Well, maybe not everything. I'm going to say my experience. So let's talk about people pleasing. We know what people pleasing is. I feel like for those who don't know, it's basically putting other people before yourself more than, and showing up for people more than you show up for yourself. That's how I would define it. I feel like since we've I don't want to say since therapy and mental health have become mainstream, because I feel like it's always been there, but in light of the internet and social media, I do feel like it's granted advocacy for mental health and therapy to come to the forefront a little bit more, in a beautiful way, And one of all the terms, I feel like one term that people have gotten more familiar with and realizing that they may have been operating out of it is people pleasing. And I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. I used to, like I was saying, people pleasing, I would define it as just putting everybody before you, and putting other people's concerns, even other people's issues, putting yourself on the back burner, saying yes to everything, always being available, always allowing people to have access to you. That, to an extent, is how I would define people pleasing. I know it's probably a technical term and definition for it, but in the sense of yes, 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 and saying that and being there, that is how I would define it. So for me, I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I feel like I hit a place where, uh, probably mid, mid 2023, late 2023. That was when I realized I was honestly people pleasing. I feel like I felt like I just hit a wall, like in every aspect of my life. I feel like I hit a wall relationally. I feel like I hit a wall in friendships. I feel like I hit a wall within myself, to where I had to ask myself, like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? And I felt like those two were the main questions that I always asked myself. And I just found myself in a season where I just had to reassess. And I believe it was because I got tired, more so mentally tired. And because I was asking myself at the time, why do I feel like I'm not getting me from other people? I feel like that was my downfall too, thinking that I'm going to get me out of everybody else. And I feel like that's twofold, because it can be good and it can be bad, because it's like when you approach relationships in general and you feel like you're going to get you out of somebody else, I feel like it's good in the sense of where you actually meet people who can reciprocate the energy, can reciprocate the effort, if not better. But there are situations too where people just can't show up, or people just simply won't show up. And so I feel like that's the flip side to it. I feel like you can encounter people that are on that same level as you, if not higher, but in the sense of the not so good end, you deal with people who just aren't willing to, don't know how to, or can't. And I feel like people pleasing for me showed up differently in all of those situations. And I feel like in a healthy relationships, I don't want to say people pleasing isn't a thing in healthy relationships, but I feel like there's mutual effort. So how can people pleasing be in the equation when both people are showing up and taking themselves into consideration at the same time? To whereas on the flip side, you're giving your all and you're dealing with people who don't know, like for people who don't know how to show up, you're trying to constantly prove that you're showing up to get somebody who doesn't want to show up to show up. You're never going to be met with the same thing. Or when you're dealing with people who can't, not because they don't want to, but they may just simply not know how. And so you're trying to teach and do this and this and this instead of steering them in the right direction to help themselves and to do the work they need to do on themselves. Both of those situations just end up wearing you out. And I've just been having to, like I told you, I had to ask myself, like, what am I doing? And is this really serving me? Is this really serving me? And people pleasing wasn't doing it. I'm not saying I didn't say yes to every single thing, but I said yes to a lot. And more so, I'm the type of person to show up more emotionally and mentally, like always trying to be there for people mentally, always trying to be there for people emotionally and physically sometimes in a way, but more so mentally and emotionally. And that was what really weared me out. It weared me out. And so she's in recovery. Everything is going great. Everything's fine. I still find myself in places where I have to ask myself, one thing I do too is I speak too fast sometimes. I don't give myself time to say, hey, let me check my calendar, or hey, let me see what I'm doing. Or even if I don't have anything to do, let me give myself the space to ask myself, even though I have nothing to do I still want to commit myself to this? Because before I'd be like, I ain't got nothing to do, I'll come, and then be pissed off when the day come and I don't want to go. I didn't take the time to actually ask myself, is this something that you want to do? Is this something that you want to show up for genuinely? So I've been taking the time to like pause and ask myself those things. But yeah, I used to people please. And I guess I didn't you know how you never really realize how bad you did something, or the magnitude of the extent at which you did something, until you're removed from it, or until you encounter something that makes you see, I was doing too much. I was doing too much. And people pleasing, I feel like it does anybody more harm than good. I was going to say just for me, but I feel like people pleasing, in the essence of what it is, it does more harm than good. You're putting yourself on the back burner for the sake of somebody else. God forbid, for the sake of somebody else who doesn't even want to show up. And it's like, what am I really doing this for? What am I really doing this for? I'm not saying to always expect something in return, but I feel like in relationships, you should at least want reciprocity. I feel like all of us want that to a certain extent. And so when you end up showing up, and you knock on their door and it's like crickets, it's like, now I'm crying, and I'm tired of crying. Like I'm tired of crying. It's like, what am I showing up for when you're not even present? That's the thing. And so people pleasing, it does more harm than good. And you don't realize how much damage it's caused to you until you say no. And by that, I mean, I don't want to say guilt is damage, but the main product of saying no, for me has been guilt. Or the main thing that has come from saying no for me has been guilt. You know, and that kind of goes back to perception too, when I talked about it on the previous episode. But it's like, you show up so much for people, and then when you actually have this realization of like, even though I want to, sometimes I just simply can't. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I need a break. Sometimes I just don't want to. And so it's like, how do the people view me? How do the people that I once said yes to view me when I say no? That was my thing. And that took a few sessions of therapy, and it's still taking some, don't get it twisted, but it's still taking some time to work through, because I'll be like, should I really have said no when I could have done that? It's just like, Jada, you're tired. You just worked all day. You're tired. And for those who are meant to understand it, they'll understand it. And for those who aren't, they just won't. But I feel like guilt comes with people pleasing, because you make it such a habit of saying yes that when you say no, it's even a culture shock to you. It's like, I just tell them no. Like, it felt good, but then it's like the habit of yes. It's like, oh, maybe I should have told them yes, even though I really don't want to do it. And so now you're doing something that you don't want to do, and it's causing more harm to you. But don't let that guilt trip you up. Don't let that guilt trip you up. You're not a bad person for saying no. You're not a bad person for sometimes not wanting to do it. You're not a bad person for sometimes not wanting to show up. You're not a bad person if you just don't have the capacity to do it in that moment. None of that is a reason to. Don't let guilt be the reason that you fall back into people pleasing, and that you fall back into putting yourself on the back burner, because that's what it does. And guilt kind of wore me down at first, because I used to always think, well, maybe, you know, like in the sense of mentally and emotionally, when it came to like relationships in general, it was like, well, I'm not checking on them that much. I'm trying to check on myself and make sure I can get up and plant both feet out of my bed in the morning. Sometimes it's like that, y'all. Admit it. Like, sometimes I'm just trying to get out of the bed and make it through the day. I don't feel like checking on nobody. I don't feel like asking you how you're doing all the time. I'm trying to ask myself that and make it through the day and make sure I'm good. I'm trying to make sure that I can show up for me so I can show up for you. But you can't show up for people when you don't show up for yourself. You can't be there for people when you aren't there for yourself. You can't check in on people to where you can't check in on people and not check in on yourself. You check in on them and they ask you how you doing. You don't even know what answer to give them because you don't even know how you're doing. You're so busy asking them how are they. And you over there curled in the fetal position in the bed with your sheets wet from your tears. It's like check on yourself first. Check on you. People, if we attempted to make the sacrifices for ourselves and to show up for ourselves the way we show up for other people, I feel like we would be in a much, much better position. We'll be in a much better position. And like my life has been, while there are still some, I don't even want to say there are some tendencies there. I'm just more aware of it now. Like before I didn't ask myself any questions. Now I ask myself a question. Like even with family and stuff too, it's like, oh, you want to do this? I'll be like, let me check my calendar. Even if what I'm doing is blank, I still say, let me check it. Or if people ask me like, do you want to do this and this and this? I don't speak so fast anymore. Don't speak so fast because 9 times out of 10, you're hyped up about the idea of it in the moment. And then when the moment comes, it's like, not that it's died down, but things happen. And two, you really ask yourself, like, why did I say that in that moment? Like, why did I say that? So I encourage y'all to ask yourself the questions you need to ask so you can make sure that you show up how you should. And honestly, so you can make sure you show up happy. It's like, example, if somebody asks me, I don't like, in most cases, I'm not the biggest fan of last minute stuff. It depends on the people and it depends on the situation. But for the most part, I like to know things ahead of time. And even when I know things ahead of time, I gotta have a staff meeting with myself. And it's like, what's helped me the most with people pleasing has been saying no, being honest about myself if I really genuinely want to do it or not, and breathing and asking myself the question like, okay, let's take a beat. Like, do you really want to go there? Do you really think you should be here? Do you have the capacity to show up there? And I'm not saying capacity in the sense of like mentally and emotionally, yes, that, but also like, are you physically able to just genuinely just show up and have fun? Those are all the things that you have to ask yourself, because when people pleasing gets rid of all of those questions. People pleasing, you don't care to ask yourself the question because the answer is already yes. You're not thinking about you because you're thinking about showing up for them. Now, I'm not saying don't show up for people. I'm not saying don't reciprocate. I'm not saying don't be there for people. I'm not saying don't check in for people. But when you start doing that and forgetting about you as a whole human being and your well-being, that's when it becomes a problem. Because you're so busy catering to everybody else and you over there skin and bones. That is my point. And you just can't, there is no way in the world to show up for people when you don't even show up for yourself. And I feel like people pleasing creates resentment somewhere down the line. It's got to, especially if it's not reciprocated. It can create resentment over time because it's like, I'm doing all this for this person and I'm not even getting anything in return. And I'm not the type of person to keep tabs. I'm not saying don't wait. I'm not saying to always operate from a place of genuineness. Don't do something and keep tabs, right? But what I'm saying is, when it comes to assessing if this situation is healthy for me, you have to ask yourself to a certain degree, is there any type of reciprocity? If I'm putting this effort in, am I getting it back? Or ask if you care about the person enough, and if y'all care about each other enough, ask them to make sure they're in a place where they can reciprocate it. Sometimes they may have their own stuff going on. They may not be able to, and that is okay. But in the sense of you just simply not getting it back and you just simply just putting your whole self out there and not getting anything in return, that's unhealthy. That is unhealthy. It's so unhealthy. It is so unhealthy. And I just had to, after like I guess you could say the recovery of it, just like growing out of that has been one of the hardest things that I've had to do, like in my adult years. Because we can, like I said at the beginning, like we could just get so used to saying, oh, I'm doing this because I'm a good person. I'm doing this because I have a big heart. Like that big heart gonna weigh you down. I feel like you can only say that to a certain extent. You can only say, oh, I'm such a genuine person. I'm such a good person. I have such a big heart and I can just show up for everybody. How can you say that you're showing up for yourself? How are you taking care of the big heart that you say you have to give to other people? Because your heart can't be that big if you're not taking care of yourself. Mess around, be dying on the inside. Like show up for yourself. Show up for yourself. And I encourage anybody that's struggling with people pleasing, or anybody who, it doesn't even have to be people pleasing. It can just be you just doing too much for other people and not doing enough for yourself. I encourage y'all to ask yourself the intent behind it. And I encourage you to say no. And I also encourage y'all to just like stop and take a beat. When it came to like business and work, one of the greatest lessons that I learned was just not accepting it in the moment, or learning the beauty of following up later. Hey, what you doing tomorrow? Nothing. I'll say like nothing I know of at the moment, but let me, check and get back with you. Or I'll say, I just can't do it that day. Let's come up with another day. But yeah, ask yourself the necessary questions. Take care of yourself. Stop trying to take care of other people more than you take care of yourself. Because 9 times, I feel like people pleasing can come from showing up for other people because we haven't had people show up for us that way. So we want to prove to other people that we're worthy of showing up for. So we overly show up for them. Like if I feel like there have been times I just felt like people didn't show up. At the time I didn't really ask why, but I just felt like people weren't showing up. But that was another reason why I just overly showed up for people, because the last thing I want to do is to make you feel like I didn't show up for you. But what good is that if I can't even show up for myself? That's my point. So check your intentions at the door. Ask yourself. I feel like when you ask yourself, why did I say yes? And when you ask yourself, why do I want to do this, or what am I doing? You'll realize sometimes it's like, I should have said no. And when you get out of that people pleasing, or just when you get out of overexerting yourself and over giving and over loving and having this big gigantoranosaurus heart, you realize like there's actually a healthy way to show up, where I'm taking into consideration, you're taking into consideration, and I'm getting in return what I'm putting out. That's the goal, to have a healthy sense of reciprocity. Even in general, when both people can't show up fully, showing up to the extent of which they can with what they have in that moment. And when they both can reciprocate fully, doing that too. But I feel like people pleasing doesn't grant you or them the opportunity to do that. And that's the goal here, to have healthy relationships, to deal with situations healthily, and to have a healthy relationship with ourselves in a healthy manner. And I feel like people pleasing just it shoots all of that out the window. There's no room to do that because you're not taking yourself into consideration, and it ends up affecting your relationships and the situations you move in, because it ends up taking a toll on you in the long run. And so I encourage y'all to ask yourself those questions. I encourage y'all to say no and to not feel guilty about it. If you struggle with people pleasing, you're going to feel guilty about it. Hate to break it to you, bud. You're going to feel guilty about it, but don't let that guilt stop you and make you go back to saying yes. Keep saying no. Know when to say no, and ask yourself if you're able to show up. And if you're not, take care of yourself and find the harmony of taking care of yourself and giving yourself to other people. Don't give yourself to people who can't give you anything in return. I'm not saying tit for tat, but in the sense of a healthy relationship, ask yourself what it is that you want. Ask yourself if you're overextending or people pleasing in any relationships that you may have. And just take some time to sit with yourself. Don't say yes in the moment. Take time to, even if you don't have anything to do, to say, hey, let me circle back. I'm good about saying that, baby. Let me circle back. We'll chat tomorrow. I'll text you tomorrow. I'll let you know when I get home. I'll let you know when I get to a stopping point. Whew. I feel like I said all of that episode in a run-on sentence. Goodness gracious, Jada. That one, that one's gotten me. I've come a long way from that one. I truly have. But yeah, if y'all have any questions or need help with anything in regards to people pleasing, or just want to share your people pleasing predicament, let me know. Y'all can DM me at Instagram and TikTok. I'll put it up on the screen if you're watching. But the Instagram and TikTok is at OHHH_Jada. I'm thinking about making an email that y'all can email stuff to, or email like questions and stuff into, maybe for like later in this season, or like later in the year. So let me know if y'all are interested in that. But yeah, ask yourself the necessary questions. I'll be praying for everybody who is in the midst of recovering from people pleasing, or even if you're in the middle of it, get up out of there. But yes, I will be praying for y'all on that if anybody's struggling with it. But yeah, DM me or comment. I'm not sure if you can comment on the audio platforms, but comment on YouTube, like anything, any people-pleasing tendencies that y'all need help with, or any of that type of stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope and pray that you guys genuinely take the time out to take care of yourself so you can better be there for other people. And so you guys stay mindful. I love you, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mindful Moments. I want y'all to remember this. Take it one step at a time. Know that you're capable. Know that you're worth it. Be intentional and know that everything you need to accomplish the things you want is already inside of you. But look, y'all, the podcast doesn't end here, okay? Be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at O_Jada. That's O with 3 H's _JADA. You can see the visuals from past episodes and segments, and maybe even some teasers for upcoming episodes. And be sure to follow and like Mindful Moments on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and even Google Podcasts. And as you go through your day, remember to be mindful of today in hopes for a better tomorrow. I'll see you in the next episode.